Hello. Today, congratulations to Kim Ledbetter, the sister of Joe Cox, on winning the Batley and Spen by-election at 5:30 this morning. It's very exciting. But it was a knife-edge win. Slim at best, 323 votes over the 12,973 votes to the Conservatives, and a very low voter turnout, despite all the efforts of Labour to get the vote out. Now, the Conservative challenger was a man called Ryan Stevenson, and he wasn't local, so the only local candidate was Kim. And that alone seems to me to be deserving of a win. She had a really tough campaign. She was attacked for supporting LGBTQ plus rights, and what Diane Abbott called a homophobic campaign. I think this slightly skews the issue, which I'll come to a little bit later. But she was also vilified by George Galloway, who scored 8,000 to just over 8,000 votes, and insisted. I mean, he's a bad loser. He's such a difficult man. I have a lot of I have had a lot of admiration for George Galloway. I like the way he talks, but he stands no chance of winning, and he's demanding a vote recount and all these other things. He's simply a sore loser. This was a trumped-up campaign from his point of view, working on the fears of the large Muslim community. And Galloway's stated aim was to topple the Labour leader, Keir Starmer, who'd already suffered one by-election defeat, a magnificent by-election defeat, and really all George Galloway did was to fracture the Labour vote. So we could ask, what went wrong? This should have been a by-election about the legacy of Joe Cox, who was brutally assassinated. We don't think of political assassination as being part of our politics, but it has become so. And instead of this became a campaign about the leadership of Keir Starmer. Could he still cling on to office? And also, I think, about the damage done to the Conservative Party by Matt Hancock's wandering hands. So, we can ask, why did Joe Cox's sister do so poorly? Well, she won, but only just. Her vote was stolen by George Galloway, and the Conservative vote was stolen by Matt Hancock. So these two individuals, both scoundrels in their own way, and one of whom I'd be happy to have tea with, one of whom really I wouldn't want to darken my door. And George Galloway, of course, is the person who was on Big Brother slurping milk out of a saucer. So when he comes to tea, I'll give him a bowl of milk. I'm sure he'll find that familiar. The very possibility that in the middle of a parliamentary session, the government might even win a by-election should be news enough. And the fact that this by-election was won by such a small number of votes against the government party is astonishing. It tells us how popular the Conservative government actually is, and to lose by just 300 odd votes is madness and a poor reflection on the Labour Party as a whole, and certainly on this maverick George Galloway. Complacent policy initiatives by the Conservative government, a lack of clear policy initiatives by Labour, and simply the cringe factor of Hancock, this demonstrable effect of sleaze that can only get worse as it sinks in. Now, There is another factor in the story, and that is that the constituency is is the site of a local in the constituency. There's a local school in Batley, which suspended a teacher for showing a Charlie Hebdo cartoon. These cartoons from way back in 2015 that mocked Islam and the Prophet. This teacher showed one of the cartoons of the Prophet in a religious studies lesson. So, this is very much close to my heart. And he was later described for what he'd done. He was described by community leaders as a terrorist. And Gary Kibble, the head teacher, dumped him and two other teachers who apparently knew in advance what he was proposing to do. This is, when you put this in the context of the beheading of Samuel Paty, who was killed in a Paris suburb last year after similarly advocating free expression and showing one of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons. This is very disturbing because, the problem isn't going away. We know that the religious studies teacher in Batley was popular. 64,000 students and local people signed a petition begging for the teacher's reinstatement. But he's potentially in danger now. I have no intention of naming him or of the other two teachers who were suspended because of the row. But what we should be teaching in schools, we should of course be teaching critical and creative thought, but we should first be teaching sensitivity and balancing sensitivity with freedom. And that means sensitivity to all groups. And particularly in religious studies, we should be looking at the religious traditions of the communities in which we live. And one of the principal tenets of Islam is that one does not depict the Prophet. And so this is a problem that I think is going to hang over for some time. We need a more positive solution. So my take on this by-election, a very important by-election, is that although Jo Cox's sister won, and congratulations again, this was really a very modest victory for Keir Starmer. He is clinging on by his fingernails, and it's a major defeat for the Conservative Party. It's at a time when they could, in fact, clearly have won, and it's another demonstration of the damage done by the scoundrel Matt Hancock, and he should be hanging his head in shame because he's done so much damage in the run-up to an important by-election. I for one, I'm so shocked by the story and by the rumblings on. This is, as I say, this is a story in general. So many issues here are going to rumble on for a lot longer than the duration of this by-election.